Hey everyone, welcome to the Latent Space podcast. This is Alessio, partner and CTO at Decibel Partners, and I'm joined by my co-host swyx, founder of Small AI.
Hey everyone, we are in the Chroma studio again, but with our first ever anonymous guest, comfyanonymous. Welcome.
Yeah. Well, hello.
I feel like that's your full name. You just go by Comfy, right?
Yeah, well, a lot of people just call me Comfy, even when they know my real name. Say, hey, Comfy.
Yeah, swyx is the same. Like, not a lot of people call you Sean.
Yeah, you have a professional name, right?
Yeah.
That people know you by, and then you have a legal name. Yeah, it's fine. How do I phrase this? Like, I think people who are in the know that Comfy is like the tool for image generation and now other multimodality stuff. I would say that when I first got started with Stable Diffusion, the star of the show was Automatic 111, right? And I actually looked back at my notes from 2022-ish. Like, Comfy was already getting started back then, but it was kind of like the up-and-comer, and like your main feature was the flowchart. Can you just kind of rewind to that moment, that year, and like, you know, how you looked at the landscape there and decided to start Comfy?
Yeah, I discovered Stable Diffusion in 2022, in October 2022. And, I kind of started playing around with it. And back then I was using Automatic, which was what everyone was using back then. And so I started with that. Because when I started, I had no idea like how diffusion models work, how any of this works. So.
Oh, yeah. What was your prior background as an engineer?
Just a software engineer. Yeah, boring software engineer.
But like any image stuff, any orchestration, distributed systems, GPUs?
No, I was doing basically nothing interesting.
CRUD, web development?
Yeah, well, not web development, just some basic like automation stuff and
okay.
Just no big companies or anything.
Yeah, but like already some interest in automations, probably a lot of Python.
Yeah, of course, Python. But I wasn't actually used to the Node graph interface before I started Comfy UI. It was just I just thought it was what's the best way to represent the diffusion process in the user interface, and then naturally, this is the best way I found. And this was with the Node interface. So how I got started was, so basic October 2022, just I hadn't written a line of PyTorch before that, so it was completely new. What happened was I kind of got addicted to generating images.
As we all did.
Yeah. And then I started experimenting with the high-res fixed in Auto, which was, for those that don't know, the high-res fix is just to generate, since the diffusion models back then could only generate at low resolution. So what you would do, you would generate low resolution image, then upscale, then kind of refine it again. And that was kind of the hack to generate high resolution images. I really liked generating higher resolution images, so I was experimenting with that. And so I modified the code a bit. Okay, what happens if I use different samplers on the second pass? So I was edited the code of Auto. So what happens if I use a different sampler? What happens if I use a different, different settings, different number of steps? And because back then the high-res fix was very basic,
Yeah. Now there's a whole library of just upsamplers.
I think they added a bunch of options to the high-res fix since then. But before that, it was just so basic. So I wanted to go further. I wanted to try, what happens if I use a different model for the second pass? And then the Auto code base wasn't good enough for it would have been harder to implement that in the Auto interface than to create my own interface. So that's when I decided to create my own.
And you were doing that mostly on your own when you started, or did you already have kind of like a subgroup of people?
I was on my own because it was just me experimenting with stuff. So yeah, that was based. So I started writing the code January 1, 2023, and then I released the first version on GitHub January 16, 2023. That's how things got started.
And what's the name Comfy UI right away?
Yeah, Comfy UI. The reason my name is Comfy is people thought my pictures were comfy. So I just name it. It's my Comfy UI. So yeah, that's.
Is there a particular segment of the community that you targeted as users, like more intensive workflow artists, compared to the automatic crowd, or?
This was my way of experimenting with new things. I like the high-risk fix thing I mentioned, which was in Comfy, the first thing you could easily do was just chain different models together. And then one of the first things, I think the first times it got a bit of popularity was when I started experimenting with different, applying prompts to different areas of the image. Mm. Yeah, I called it area conditioning. Posted it on Reddit and it got a bunch of upvotes. So I think that's when people first learned of Comfy UI.
Mm. Is that mostly fixing hands?
No, that was just let's say, it was it still is kind of difficult to let's say you want a mountain, you have an image and then, I want a mountain here and I want a fox here. Mm.
So compositing the image.
Yeah, my way was very easy. It was just when you run the diffusion process, you kind of generate, you do one pass through the diffusion model. Every step you do one pass, this place of the image with this prompt, this place of the image with the other prompt, and then the entire image with another prompt, and then just average everything together every step. And that was area composition, which I call it. And then a month later, there was a paper that came out called multi-diffusion, which was the same thing. But yeah, that's...
Could you do area composition with different models? Or because you're averaging out, you kind of need the same model?
You could do it with... But yeah, I hadn't implemented it for different models. But you can do it with different models if you want, as long as the models share the same latent space.
Mm-hmm. We're supposed to ring a bell every time someone says latent space.
Yeah, for example, you couldn't use XL and SD 1.5 because those have different latent space. But SD 1.5 models, different ones, you could do that.
There's some models that try to work in pixel space, right?
Yeah, they're very slow. So
of course,
that's the problem. That's the reason why Stable Diffusion actually became popular, was because of the latent space.
Yeah, small and because it used to be latent diffusion models, and then they trained it up.
Yeah, because pixel diffusion models are just too slow. So
yeah, have you ever tried to talk to Stability, the latent diffusion guys, Robin Rombach, that crew?
Yeah, well, I used to work at Stability.
Oh, I actually know.
Yeah, I used to work at Stability. I got hired in June 2023.
That's the part of the story I didn't know about. Okay.
Yeah. So the reason I was hired is because they were doing SDXL at the time. And they were basically SDXL, I don't know if you remember, it was a base model and then a refiner model. Mm-hmm. Basically, they wanted to experiment, chaining them together. And then they saw,
right,
we can use this to do that. Well, let's hire that guy.
But they didn't pursue it for SD3.
What do you mean?
The SDXL approach.
Yeah, the reason for that approach was because basically they had two models, and then they wanted to publish both of them. So they trained one on lower time steps, which was the refiner model, and then the first one was trained normally. And then during their test, they realized, if we string these models together, our quality increases. So let's publish that.
It worked.
Yeah, but right now, I don't think many people actually use the refiner anymore. Even though it is actually a full diffusion model, you can use it on its own, and it's going to generate images. I don't think people have mostly forgotten about it. But
Can we talk about models a little bit? So Stable Diffusion obviously is the most known. I know Flux has gotten a lot of traction. Are there any underrated models that people should use more, or what's the state of the union?
Well, the latest state of the art, at least, for images, there's Flux. There's also SD 3.5. SD 3.5 is two models. There's a small one, 2.5B, and there's the bigger one, 8B. So it's smaller than Flux, and it's more creative in a way. But Flux is the best. People should give SD 3.5 a try because it's different. I won't say it's better. Well, it's better for some like specific use cases. Like if you want to make something more like creative, maybe SD 3.5. If you want to make something more consistent, then Flux is probably better.
Do you ever consider supporting the closed source model APIs?
We do support them as custom nodes. We actually have some official custom nodes from different...
Ideogram.
Yeah.
I guess DALL-E would have one.
Yeah, that's... it's just not... I'm not the person that handles that. So.
Sure. Quick question on SD. There's a lot of community discussion about the transition from SD 1.5 to SD2 and then SD2 to SD3. People still very loyal to the previous generations of SDs?
SD 1.5 and still has a lot of users.
The last based model.
Yeah, then SD2 was mostly ignored because it wasn't a big enough improvement over the previous one.
Okay, so SD 1.5, SD3, Flux, and whatever else. SDXL.
SDXL, that's the main one.
Stable Cascade? No?
Stable Cascade, that was a good model, but that's the problem with that one is it got, SD3 was announced 1 week after.
Yeah, it was like a weird release. What was it like inside of Stability, actually?
Wow.
I mean, statute of limitations expired. Management has moved, so it's easier to talk about now.
Yeah, inside Stability, actually that model was ready 3 months before, but it got stuck in red teaming. So basically, the problem that if that model had released when it was supposed to be released by the authors, then it would probably have gotten very popular since it's a step up from SDXL. But it got all of its momentum stolen by the SD3 announcement. So people kind of didn't develop anything on top of it, even though it was a good model, at least mostly ignored for some reason. I
think the naming as well matters. It seemed like a branch off of the main tree of development.
Yeah, well, it was different researchers that did it.
Different arch.
Very a good model. It's the Worcestershire authors. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Worcestershire, yeah. I
actually met them in Vienna.
Yeah, they worked at Stability for a bit, and they left right after the Cascade release.
This is Dustin, right?
No.
Dustin's SD3. Yeah.
No, Dustin is SD3, SDXL. That's Pablo and Dome. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. That's
very cool.
Very good.
It seems like the community is they move very quickly.
Yeah.
When there's a new model out, they just drop whatever the current one is and they just all move wholesale over. They don't really stay to explore the full capabilities. If the Stable Cascade was that good, they would have A/B tested a bit more. Instead, they're like, okay, SD3 is out, let's go.
Well, I find the opposite, actually. The community doesn't, they only jump on a new model when there's a significant improvement.
I see.
If there's only an incremental improvement, which is what most of these models are going to have, especially if you stay the same parameter count. You're not going to get a massive improvement unless there's something big that changes. So
And how are they evaluating these improvements? Because it's a whole chain of comfy workflows.
Yeah.
How does one part of the chain actually affect the whole process?
Are you talking on the model side specific?
Model specific, right? But once you have your whole workflow based on a model, it's very hard to move.
Not well,
No?
not really. Well,
Yeah, maybe not.
Depends on the specifics and the workflow.
Yeah. Like, so I do a lot of like text and image.
Yeah, it's when you do change, like most workflows are kind of going to be compatible between different models. It's just like you might have to completely change your prompt, completely change.
Okay, well, I mean, then maybe the question is really about evals. Like, what does the Comfy community do for evals? Just, you know,
Well, that they don't really do. It's more like, oh, I
check.
think this image is nice. So that's
they just subscribe to Fofer AI and just see like, you know, what Fofer is doing.
they just generate like it. Like I don't see anyone really doing like at least on the Comfy side, Comfy users. It's more like generate images and see this one's nice. This like
vibes.
Yeah. It's not like the more scientific like checking. That's more on specifically on like model side. But there is a lot of vibes also because it is a artistic. You can create a very good model that doesn't generate nice images because most of the images on the internet are ugly. So if you if that's like if you just I have the best model that can it's super smart. I train it on all the I train it on just all the images on the internet. The images are not going to look good. So
yeah.
they're going to be very consistent, but people it's not going to be like the look that people are going to be expecting from a model. So
can we talk about LoRAs? Because we talk about models, and then like the next step is probably LoRAs. I'm kind of curious how LoRAs entered the toolset of the image community, because the LoRA paper was 2021. And then like there was like other methods like textual inversion that was popular at the early SD stage.
Yeah, I can explain the difference between textual inversions. That's basically what you're doing is you're training Stable Diffusion. You have the diffusion model, you have the text encoder. So basically, what you're doing is training a vector that you're gonna pass to the text encoder. It's basically you're training a new word.
Yeah, it's a little bit like representation engineering now.
Basically, you're just if you know how the text encoder works, basically you have you take your words of your prompt, you convert those into tokens with the tokenizer, and those are converted into vectors. Basically, each token represents a different vector, so each word presents a vector, and those, depending on your words, that's the list of vectors that get passed to the text encoder, which is just a stack of attention. Basically, it's very close to LLM architecture. So basically, what you're doing is just training a new vector. We're saying, well, I have all these images, and I want to know which word does that represent. And it's going to get you train this vector, and then when you use this vector, it hopefully generates something similar to your images.
Yeah. I would say it's surprisingly sample efficient in picking up the concept that you're trying to train it on.
Yeah. Well, people have kind of stopped doing that, even though back at when I was at Stability, we actually did train internally some textual inversions on T5XXL. Actually worked pretty well, but for some reason, people don't use them, and also they might also work that's just something you'd probably have to test. But maybe if you train a textual inversion on T5XXL, it might also work with all the other models that use T5XXL. Because same thing with the textual inversions that were trained for SD 1.5, they also kind of work on SDXL, because SDXL has two text encoders, and one of them is the same as the SD 1.5 clip L. So those they don't work as strongly because they're only applied to one of the text encoders. But and the same thing for SD3. SD3 has three text encoders, so It works. It's still, you can still use your text conversion SD 1.5 on SD3, but it's just a lot weaker because now there's 3 text encoders, so it gets even more diluted.
Yeah. Do people experiment a lot on just on the clip side? There's like siglip, there's blip. Like, do people experiment a lot on those?
Well, you can't really replace.
Yeah, because they're trained together, right?
Yeah, they're trained together, so you can't what I've seen people experimenting with is a long clip. So basically, someone fine-tuned the clip model to accept longer prompts.
Oh, it's kind of like long context fine tuning.
Yeah, so like it's actually supported in Core Comfy.
How long is long?
Regular clip is 77 tokens.
Yeah.
Long clip is 256.
Okay.
So, but the hack that if you use Stable Diffusion 1.5, you've probably noticed, it still works if I use long prompts, prompts longer than 77 words. Well, that's because the hack is to just you split it up in chunks of 70. Your big prompt. Let's say you give it like the massive text like the Bible or something, and it would split it up in chunks of 77, and then just pass each one through the clip, and then just cut everything together at the end. It's not ideal, but it actually works.
Like the positioning of the words really, really matters then, right? Like this is why order matters in prompts.
Yeah. Yeah, like it works, but it's not ideal, but it's what people expect. Like if someone gives a huge prompt, they expect at least some of the concepts at the end to be like present in the image. But usually when they give long prompts, they don't expect like detail, I think. So that's why it works very well.
And while we're on this topic, prompt weighting, negative prompting, all sort of similar part of this layer of the stack.
Yeah, the hack for that, which works on clip, basically it's just for SD 1.5. Well, for SD 1.5, the prompt weighting works well because clip L is not a very deep model. So you have a very high correlation between, you have the input token, the index of the input token vector and the output token. The concepts are very closely linked. So that means if you interpolate the vector from the way Comfy UI does it is it has, you have a vector, you have an empty prompt. So you have a chunk, like a clip output for the NP prompt, and then you have the one for your prompt, and then it interpolates from that depending on your prompt weight, the weight of your tokens. So that's how it does prompt weighting. But this stops working the deeper your text encoder is. So on T5XSL it doesn't work at all. So
wow, is that a problem for people? I mean, because I'm used to just moving up numbers.
Probably not, because,
So you just use words to describe, right? Because it's a bigger language model.
Yeah, so honestly, it might be good, but I haven't seen many complaints on Flux that it's not working. So, because I guess people can sort of get around it with language, so...
Yeah. And then coming back to LoRAs, now the popular way to customize models is LoRAs. And I saw you also support Locon and Loha, which I've never heard of before.
There's a bunch of, because what the LoRA is essentially is instead of you have your model and then you want to fine tune it. So instead of what you could do is you could fine tune the entire thing.
Yeah, full fine tune. Yeah.
But that's a bit heavy. So to speed things up and make things less heavy, what you can do is just fine-tune some smaller weights, like basically two matrices that when you multiply, like two low-rank matrices, and when you multiply them together, represents a difference between trained weights and your base weights. So by training those two smaller matrices, that's a lot less heavy.
Yeah. And they're portable. So you can share them.
Yeah,
it's
and also
easier.
Smaller. Yeah, that's how LoRAs work. So basically, so when inferencing, you can inference with them pretty efficiently, like how comfui does it. It just, when you use a LoRa, it just applies it straight on the weights, so that there's only a small delay at the like before the sampling to when it applies the weights, and then it just same speed as before. So for inference, it's not that bad. But and then you have so basically all the LoRa types like LoHa, LoCon, everything. That's just different ways of representing that. Like basically, you can call it kind of like compression, even though it's not really compression. It's just different ways of representing, like. Just okay. I want to train a difference on the weights. What's the best way to represent that difference? There's the basic LoRa, which is just let's multiply these two matrices together, and then there's all the other ones, which are all different algorithms. So
yeah. So let's talk about what comfui actually is. I think most people have heard of it. Some people might have seen screenshots. I think fewer people have built very complex workflows. So when you started, automatic was like the super simple way. What were some of the choices that you made? So the node workflow, is there anything else that stands out? It's like, this was like a unique take on how to do image generation workflows.
Well, I feel like, back then, everyone was trying to make like easy to use interface. But I'm like, well, everyone's trying to make an easy-to-use interface.
Let's make a hard-to-use interface.
I don't need to do that. Everyone else doing it, so let me try something. Let me try to make a powerful interface. That's not easy to use.
So there's a sort of node execution engine. Your README actually has a really good list of features of things you prioritize, right? Like, let me see, sort of re-executing from any parts of the workflow that was changed, asynchronous queue system, smart memory management. Like all this seems like a lot of engineering that.
Yeah, there's a lot of engineering in the backend to make things. Because I was always focused on making things work locally very well, because I was using it locally. So everything. So there's a lot of thought and work in getting everything to run as well as possible. So comfui is actually more of a back end, at least. Now the front end's getting a lot more development, but before I was pretty much only focused on the back end.
Yeah. So V0.1 was only August this year.
Yeah, before
with
there
the
was
new front
no
end
versioning. So
yeah. And so what was the big rewrite for the 0.1 and then the 1.0?
Well, that's more on the front end side. That's because before that it was just like the UI. Because when I first wrote it, I said, okay, how can I make I can do web development, but I don't like doing it. What's the easiest way I can slap a node interface on this? And then I found this library, LightGraph, JavaScript library. LightGraph.
Usually people will go for React Flow for a flow builder.
Yeah, but that seems too complicated. Because of React. So I didn't really want to spend time developing the front end. So I'm LightGraph. This has the whole node interface. So, okay, let me just plug that into my backend. And
I feel like if Streamlit or Gradio offered something, you would have used Streamlit or Gradio because it's Python.
Streamlit and Gradio. Gradio, I don't like Gradio.
Why?
It's bad. That's one of the reasons why Automatic was very bad. It's great because the problem with Gradio is it forces you to, not forces you, but it kind of makes your interface logic and your backend logic and just sticks them together.
It's supposed to be easy for you guys. If you're a Python main, I'm a JS main, right?
Yeah.
If you're a Python main, it's supposed to be easy.
Yeah, it's easy, but it makes your whole software a huge mess.
I see. So you're mixing concerns instead of separating concerns.
Well, it's because
front end and back end.
The front end and back end should be well separated with a defined API. That's how you're supposed to do it.
Smart people disagree, but
it just sticks everything together and makes it easy to make a huge mess. And also it's there's a lot of issues with Gradio. Like it's very good if all you want to do is just slap a quick interface on your to show off your your ML project. Like that's what it's made for.
Yeah.
There's no problem using it. Like, oh, I have my code. I just wanted a quick interface on it. That's perfect. Use Gradio. But if you want to make something that's real software that will last a long time and will be easy to maintain, then I would avoid it.
Yeah. So your criticism is Streamlit and Gradio the same. I mean, those are the same criticisms.
Streamlit I haven't
used as much.
Yeah, I just looked a bit.
Similar philosophy.
Yeah, it's similar. It's just it just seems to me like, okay, for quick AI demos, it's perfect.
Yeah, going back to the core tech, like asynchronous queues, slow re-execution, smart memory management. Anything that you're very proud of or was very hard to figure out.
Yeah, the thing that's the biggest pain in the ass is probably the memory management.
Yeah, were you just paging models in and out, or?
Yeah, before it was just okay. Load the model, completely unload it, load the new model, completely unload it. Then, okay, that works well when your models are small. But if your models are big and it takes, let's say someone has a 4090 and the model size is 10 gigabytes, that can take a few seconds to load and load. So you want to try to keep things in memory, in the GPU memory as much as possible. What comfyui does right now is that it tries to estimate, okay, you're going to sample this model. It's going to take probably this amount of memory. Let's remove the models this amount of memory that's been loaded on the GPU, and then just execute it. But so there's a fine line between because try to remove the least amount of models that are already loaded, because it spans Windows driver. And another problem is the NVIDIA driver on Windows by default, because there's an option to disable that feature, but by default if you start loading, you can overflow your GPU memory, and then the driver is going to automatically start paging to RAM. But the problem with that is it makes everything extremely slow. So when you see people complaining, oh, this model, it works, but oh shit, it starts slowing down a lot, that's probably what's happening. So it's basically you have to just try to use as much memory as possible, but not too much, or else things start slowing down or people get out of memory. And then just try to find that line where, the driver on Windows starts paging and stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem with PyTorch is it's high levels. Don't have that much fine-grained control over specific memory stuff. So kind of have to leave the memory freeing to Python and PyTorch, which can be annoying sometimes.
So, I think one thing as a maintainer of this project, you're designing for a very wide surface area of compute. You even support CPUs.
Yeah, well, that's just
for fun.
PyTorch supports CPUs. So it's just that's not hard to support.
First of all, is there a market share estimate? Is it 70% NVIDIA and 30% AMD, and then miscellaneous on Apple Silicon or whatever?
For Comfy, I don't know the market share.
Can you guess?
I think it's mostly NVIDIA. Because the problem, AMD works horribly on Windows. On Linux, it works fine. It's slower than the price equivalent NVIDIA GPU, but it works. You can use it, generate images, everything works. On Linux, on Windows, you might have a hard time. So that's the problem. And I think most people who bought AMD probably use Windows. They probably aren't going to switch to Linux. So until AMD actually ports their ROCm to Windows properly, and then there's actually PyTorch. I think they're doing that. They're in the process of doing that, but until they get a good PyTorch ROCm build that works on Windows, it's they're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah, we got to get George on it.
Yeah, well, he's trying to get Lisa Su to do it, but let's talk a bit about the node design. So unlike all the other text to image, you have a very deep. So you have a separate node for clip and code. You have a separate node for the case sampler. You have all these nodes. Going back to the making it easy versus making it hard, but how much do people actually play with all the settings? Kind of how do you guide people to hey, this is actually going to be very impactful versus this is maybe less impactful, but we still want to expose it to you?
Well, I try to expose everything, at least for things for example, for the samplers, there's 4 different sampler nodes, which go in easiest to most advanced. So if you go the easy node, the regular sampler node, that's you have just basic settings. But if you use the sampler custom advanced node, that one you can you'll see you have different nodes.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah.
What are the most impactful parameters that you use? So it's you can have more, but which ones really make a difference?
CFG.
Yeah, they all do. They all have their own for example, steps. Usually you want steps, you want them to be as low as possible, but you want, if you're optimizing your workflow, you lower the steps until the images start deteriorating too much, because that's the number of steps you're running the diffusion process. So if you want things to be fast, that's lower is better. But CFG, that's more, you can kind of see that as the contrast of the image. If your image looks too burnt out, then you lower the CFG. So CFG, that's how strongly the negative versus positive prompt. So when you sample a diffusion model, it's basically a negative prompt. It's just positive prediction minus negative prediction.
Contrastive loss.
Yeah, so it's positive minus negative, and the CFG, that's the multiplier. So
what are good resources to understand what the parameters do? I think most people start with automatic, and then they move over and it's step, CFG, sampler name, scheduler, denoise.
Reddit.
But honestly, it's something you should try out yourself. I don't know, you don't necessarily need to know how it works to what it does, because even if you know CFG, it's positive minus negative prompt.
Yeah.
So the only thing you know with CFG is if it's 1.0, then that means the negative prompt isn't applied. It also means sampling is 2 times faster. But but other than that, it's more you should really just see what it does to the images yourself, and you'll probably get the more intuitive understanding of what these things do.
Any other nodes or things you want to shout out? I know the animate diff, IP adapter, those are some of the most popular ones. What else comes to mind?
Not nodes, but there's what I like is when some people sometimes they make things that use comfy.ui as their backend. There's a plugin for Reka that uses comfy.ui as its backend, so you can use all the models that work in Comfy in Reka, and I think I've tried it once, but I know a lot of people use it and find it really nice. So.
What's the craziest node that people have built? The most complicated?
Craziest node, I know some people have made video games and in Comfy with stuff like that. So someone, I remember I think it was last year, someone made like Wolfenstein 3D in Comfy. And then one of the inputs was, you can generate a texture, and then it changes the texture in the game. So you can plug it to like workflow. And there's a lot of, if you look there, there's a lot of crazy things people do. So
yeah. And now there's like a node register that people can use to like download nodes and
there's always been the Comfy manager, but we're trying to make this more like official, with the node registry, because before the node registry, how did your custom node get in the Comfy manager? Right. That's the guy running it who every day he searched GitHub for new custom nodes and added them manually to his custom node manager. So we're trying to make it less effort for him, basically.
Yeah, but I was looking. I mean, there's like a YouTube download node. There's like this is almost like a data pipeline more than like an image generation thing at this point. It's like you can get data in, you can like apply filters to it, you can generate data out.
Yeah, you can do a lot of different things. Yeah, something I think what I did is I made it easy to make custom nodes. So I think that helped a lot for the ecosystem, because it is very easy to just make a node. So a bit too easy sometimes. Then we have the issue where there's a lot of custom node packs which share similar nodes. So, but that's something we're trying to solve by maybe bringing some of the functionality into core.
And then there's like video. People can do video generation.
Yeah, video. That's the first video model was like Stable Video Diffusion, which was exactly last year, I think, like 1 year ago. But that wasn't a true video model. So it was.
It was like moving images.
Yeah, it generated video. What I mean by that is it's it's still 2D latent. It's basically what they did is they took SD2, and then they added some temporal attention to it, and then trained it on videos, and so it's kind of like animate diff, close, same idea basically. Why I say it's not a true video model is that you still have like the 2D latents. Like a true video model, like Mochi, for example, would have 3D latents. So and
you can like move through the space. Basically, it's the difference. You're not just kind of like reorienting.
Yeah, and it's also because you have a temporal VAE. That also, like Mochi has a temporal VAE that compresses on like the temporal direction also. So that's something you don't have with animate diff and Stable Video Diffusion. They only like compress spatially, not temporally. Right. So these models, that's why I call them like true video models. There's actually a few of them, but the one I've implemented in Comfy is Mochi, because that seems to be the best one so far.
We had AJ come and speak at the Stable Diffusion meetup. Other open one I think I've seen is Cog Video.
Yeah, Cog Video. Yeah, that one's it also seems decent, but
Chinese, so we don't use it.
No, it's fine. It's just it's just it's not the only one. There's also a few others which
the rest are like closed source, right? Like Kling.
The closed source. There's a bunch of them, but I mean open. I've seen a few of them. Like I can't remember their names, but there's Cog Videos, the big one. Then there's also a few of them that released at the same time. There's one that released at the same time as SD 3.5, same day, which is why I don't remember the name.
We should have a release schedule so we don't conflict on each of these things.
Yeah, I think SD 3.5 and Mochi released on the same day. So everything else was kind of completely drowned out. So for some reason, lots of people picked that day to release their stuff. Yeah, which is shame for those. I think OmniJet also released the same day, which also seems interesting. But,
what's Comfy? So you are Comfy, and then there's like comfy.org. I know we do a lot of things for like news research, and those guys also have kind of like a more open source and on thing going on. How do you work? Like you mentioned, you mostly work on like the core piece of it, and then what?
Maybe I should fit it because I feel like maybe I only explained part of the story.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should explain the rest. So basically January, that's when January 2023, January 16, 2023, that's when Comfy was first released to the public. Then did a Reddit post about the area composition thing somewhere in I don't remember exactly, maybe end of January, beginning of February. And then a YouTuber made a video about it, Olivio. He made a video about Comfy in March 2023. I think that's when it first real burst of attention. And by that time I was continue to developing it, and it was getting people were starting to use it more, which unfortunately meant that I had first written it to do like experiments, but then my time to do experiments started going down because people were actually starting to use it, and I had to, and I said, time to add all these features and stuff. And then I got hired by Stability June 2023. Then I made basically, they hired me because they wanted to do SDXL. So I got SDXL working very well in Comfy UI because they were experimenting with it. Actually, how the SDXL release worked is they released, for some reason, they released the code first, but they didn't release the model checkpoint. So they released the code. And then, since the researchers released the code, I released the code in Comfy too. And then the checkpoints were basically early access. People had to sign up, and they only allowed a lot of people from edu emails. Like if you had an edu email, they gave you access basically to the SDXL 0.9. And that leaked,
right?
Of course, because of course it's going to leak if you do that. The only way people could easily use it was with Comfy. So people started using it, and then I fixed a few of the issues people had. So when the big 1.0 release happened, and Comfy UI was the only way a lot of people could actually run it on their computers, because it just automatic was so inefficient and bad that most people couldn't it just wouldn't work. Because he did a quick implementation, so people were forced to use Comfy UI, and that's how it became popular, because people had no choice.
The growth hack.
Everywhere, people who didn't have the 4090, they had who had just regular GPUs. They didn't have a choice. So
I got a 4070. So think of me. And so today, is there a core Comfy team or?
Right now, we are hiring actually. So right now, on the core itself, it's me. But because the reason we're all the focus has been mostly on the front end right now, because that's the thing that's been neglected for a long time. So most of the focus right now is all on the front end, but we are we will soon get more people to help me with the actual backend stuff. Because that's once we have our V1 release, which is going to be the packaged Comfy UI with the nice interface and easy to install on Windows and hopefully Mac. Once we have that, we're going to have lots of stuff to do on the backend side and also the front end side. But
what's the release date? I'm on the wait list. What's the timing?
Soon. I don't want to promise a release date because we do have a release date we're targeting, but I'm not sure if it's public. And how we're gonna we're still gonna continue doing the open source, like making ComfyUI the best way to run like Stable Diffusion models, like at least the open source side, and like it's gonna be best way to run models locally. But we will have a few things to make money from it, like cloud inference or like that type of thing. So and maybe some things for some enterprises.
I mean, a few questions on that. How do you feel about the other Comfy startups?
I mean, I think it's great.
They're using your name, you know.
Yeah, well, it's better to use Comfy than to use something else.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, like it's fine. I don't like we're gonna try not to. We don't want to we want people to use Comfy because, like I said, it's better that people use Comfy than use something else. So as long as they use Comfy, I think it helps. It helps the ecosystem because more people, even if they don't contribute directly, the fact that they are using Comfy means that people are more likely to join the ecosystem. So, yeah.
And then would you ever do text?
Yeah, well, you can already do text with some custom nodes. So, yeah, it's something we like. Yeah. It's something I've wanted to eventually add to core, but it's more not a very high priority. But because a lot of people use text for prompt enhancement and other things like that, so it's it's just that my focus has always been on diffusion models. Yeah, unless some text diffusion model comes out.
Yeah, David Holtz is investing a lot in text diffusion.
Yeah, well, if a good one comes out, then he'll probably implement it since it fits with the whole.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's going to be closed source to Midjourney. So
yeah, well, if an open one comes out, then I'll probably implement it.
Cool, Comfy. Thanks so much for coming on. This was fun.